Hey honeys, welcome back to the podcast here. I'm your host Heather Donovan. This week I was going to come on and discuss the episode that I've originally planned for the second episode, like last week. However, I decided to take a completely different route for this episode since I've had a debate that with a loved one on Saturday night. I know that June was Gay Pride Month, but why should we not celebrate it every single day, especially since this topic is an everyday topic? Unfortunately, debates like the one I've had with my loved one happens every single day, and some of them ends worse than the one we had. Sometimes it ends in violence and death. At this point, I'd like to take a moment to make a quick trigger warning. Some of these points and topics that this episode that I will be making can be triggering to some people, and I want everyone to feel safe and healthy. Well, everyone to be safe and healthy. You know what I mean. If you feel like you or someone else needs some help, then I very highly suggest that you reach out to a professional and or someone who you trust. Also, I understand this subject is very many-sided per se, where everyone stands on this topic, like everybody stands all over the place. I would like to remind everyone that not one of us as individuals agrees on everything in every single topic. This is what makes every single one of us unique. With all that being said, please do not attack me or this podcast on my beliefs and standpoints or covering this topic at all. I invite you to listen with a very open mind, do your own educational research, and come to your own beliefs and standpoints. Not just the ones that everybody's telling you to believe. Be your own individual self. Before we take a deep dive right into this subject, I want everyone to always remember that someone is always something to someone else. Whether it is a parent, a sibling, an aunt, an uncle, cousin, friend, significant other, and etc., etc. Someone is always loved in a huge part of their own individual world. So it is always important to be sensitive to that because we are all defensive and protective of our own people. So why would it be any different for them? That's why it's so important to approach topics with such care. This world is already full of so much hate, so why add even more to it? It is also bad enough that the world lacks so much educational knowledge and empathy as well to add to it all. This is one of the very top reasons that I commend people that do and have come out. Despite the world becoming so harsh, they are choosing to live their best lives unapologetically. And good for them, honestly. I personally know some people close to me that are closeted and are very afraid to come out and explore who they are and what they are. That is such a shame. And what's even more of a shame is that there are so many factors one may be afraid to come out. They may be afraid of what their loved ones will think. They may be afraid of being abandoned. They may be afraid that people will treat them differently than before they came out. They may be afraid that life would be worse than it was before coming out. They may be afraid of getting hurt or even death if they were to come out. How would you feel if you had to be in this position, no matter what the reasoning was? Or if a loved one was in this position? It would be pretty dang sucky, right? So why should it even be like this? That's my question. I saw a TikTok one time. I don't think this was too long ago. Maybe a couple months. Whatever. It was very recent. Where an older person brought up a point that had me just mind blown. It still does. And I'd like to share it with you all. An older woman brought up a point that there are more queer people than older queer people. But that could be because older people are still either closeted or have very sadly committed suicide over it. Very sad, but mind-blowing, isn't it? Also, my theory is that if something isn't hurting other people or themselves, or isn't affecting others' lives directly, then why does it matter how other people feel? Clearly, these people nobody's hurting anything at all. I feel like my theory should be adopted to others more. I've had students come out to me and they tell me how hurt they are that their families don't accept them. I tell them my theory and mine blows them every single time. I believe that the older generations are the least accepting and the younger generation is a lot more accepting. In fact, I believe that the younger generation is going to change the world for the best. The first thing that we have to do is to do better in general. The other things that we can do to change the world for the best is to consistently educate ourselves, consistently educate ourselves, listen to others and their point of views, reasonably challenge each other's views, and most importantly, always stand up for what is right. This doesn't only just go for gay rights, obviously. It could go for women's rights, etc. You pick them, you know what I mean. Anyways, I believe that love is love. We don't always get to choose who we love. It just happens. Everybody should get to be happy. Also, queer relationships are no different than straight relationships in a ton of ways. I'll let you think of them on your own without me having to say them. Especially at public view. Especially not knowing like what age you are. So, I mean, yeah. A couple of weeks ago too, I was like looking for another job. I went into this local store and there was this older woman preaching about how these queer people are teaching all these young people to be gay, and I'm here to tell you that's not true. If anything, I think the straights are trying to brainwash everybody else to be like them, but that's just my personal opinion and how my educational resources have pointed me to that direction. And of course, I don't expect anybody to follow my beliefs or anything like that. But, however, I would challenge each and every one of you to do your own educational research. And closed-minded people like these really need to do their own research. Because this woman that I'm talking about was clearly very ignorant. And I can't even get into it because I'd say some things I shouldn't be saying on this podcast, and I'm really trying to be careful. And not because, like, I'm a substitute teacher anymore, because I kind of covered that last week, but I mean, I just don't want to get slandered all over the place, though. Anyway, I'm just going to leave all this information here and let it marinate with you all. With all that being said, I will be ending the podcast here this week. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Next week, I will hopefully be doing the podcast that I have been planning already. It's already planned, so hopefully we'll do that. We'll go back on course here. You can follow the podcast TikTok and Instagram at Life Has a Question Mark. You could DM the podcast Instagram if you would like to talk. Yeah, if you would like me to talk about a certain topic, leave a compliment or a comment, or request any special guests that you would like to hear on this podcast. You could also follow my own personal TikTok and Instagram at Miss D's World 2022. Always remember to spread knowledge and kindness around like the air that we breathe on a daily basis.